I'm your host Nicholas Tui, and welcome to With Random Awesome People, the show about ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. Join us as they share with us their life experiences and what they went through to get to where they are right now. My guest for today is all about the advocacy of talent and how it impacts the organizational culture. He's also one of the original initiators of DisruptHR KL, which is now on its 5th iteration. If you're a HR practitioner, then you know what that is. Join us as we talk about talent and culture. Please welcome Joachim Ooi. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of The Wrap, and I've got with me a good friend of mine, Joachim Ooi. I'll tell you what, I'll let him introduce himself. He's from Photobook, and Joachim, over to you.
All right, thanks Nick. Thanks for looping into this wrap. I'm Joachim, and I'm currently with Photobook Worldwide as the Talent and Culture Manager.
Okay.
Born from Penang.
Okay, so do you do this Hokkien?
Yeah, sure.
So, 佢知道我打Joachim 講話啦. Okay.
It's
It's only like what 5% of the market. All right, cool. So, I'm with Joachim right now, and we're gonna have try to put it to an hour of conversation. And for me, Joachim is just one really up and coming, vibrant HR, HR person in the industry that's doing a lot of good things. And I wanted him on the podcast because we want to understand a bit more of what goes through his head, how we can actually look at certain things like employer branding, employee engagement, and he's also am I right to put co-founder or part of the starting team for DisruptHR KL? Yeah. So he was part of the starting team for DisruptHR KL, and if you are a HR advocate, if you work in the HR industry in Malaysia, you pretty much have a very specific idea of what it entails. So yeah, Joachim, you say you're from Penang, so let's give maybe about 5 minutes to tell us a bit about yourself. How does Penang Kia come down to KL and start working and stuff like that? Give us a bit of a rundown about yourself.
Sure. So I studied at this place called BM High School. I'm actually located in mainland, but I guess most Penangites would disagree that we are part of the Penang, because when people talks about Penang, usually people tend to connect that it's more of the island side. So I'm actually from the mainland side. So
you drive better than the island people, right?
maybe, possibly.
Okay, yeah, got it, sorry.
All right. But I always see us as one family. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so basically, I've gone through my secondary and also my Form 6 in the same school as well. And then after that, of course, my tertiary studies is all comes down to the fate of our government. They usually will kind of like place you into certain universities that perhaps might not be of your first choice, but I'm thankful enough that I got into my first choice.
Which one was that?
So that basically lands me at Putra University, Malaysia, which is in Serdang, UPM, right? So I actually got into this course in software engineering, major software engineering, which is in computer science. So yeah, that's how it all brought me over to this place in KL. Yeah.
Okay, and when you graduated, give me a bit of a quick rundown in terms of the jobs that you held. Right now, you're the talent and culture manager for Photobook. If you're not familiar with Photobook, it's a service provider in regards of really documenting moments in your lives and putting it into a hard copy or whatever it is they want to put into. I think it's really interesting that they do. Tell us a bit about your professional working career.
Sure. I guess a lot of people might be wondering, how is this guy, an IT nerd boy, could end up being in the HR line, which is totally quite different, right? So basically, I think I would put it as perhaps I've never seen myself becoming a HR person, but I guess that I think I would like to rewind my story a little bit more just to share to everyone is that, I think 3 years in UPM, I got into something that perhaps not something that is really within me, whereby even though I'm okay to pull through that 3 years of my course, which is really into coding, learning into object-oriented programming, and yeah, and I told myself that once I got out, I just would like to apply the things that I've learned. So I have been really going out interviews at some of these tech companies out there, and then I myself into this very first company of mine, which is with Sirius Rocket.
Right.
And basically, I was placed to really focus on doing support in terms of Jira, Confluence, and that's how slowly I move up the ladder in terms of became a senior, became a lead. That's really when I started to grow my own team. And back then, I would say that there were a lot of opportunities given to me. So I was being able to really go out there to represent the company, to do career talks, to run career fairs on behalf of the HR team. And that's also how I managed to really develop my interest, my passion when it comes to spotting for talent, when it comes to really nurturing them, seeing them grow. When I see them being successful, I feel happy. And there's some inner voice telling me that, hey, perhaps, the people space function is where you belong.
Yep. Okay. How did you make the transition to people space function then?
I would say that I think it all really happens through, I think number one is really about empowering leaders and also in a collaborative environment whereby I would say in my very first company where I was also being nurtured as well, whereby they put me through a lot of different leadership training courses and also in terms of on-the-job training opportunity as well. That's also when I really start to have conversations with my previous HR leaders as well, really about understanding what a full HR entails as well when it comes to different pillars within the HR function. And somewhat, I've developed my very first interest, which is on recruitment. That's how I started my journey being in HR.
All right. Did you had a directed idea that you wanted to go to HR? Then you begin to look at the people in the pathway, HR managers, HR directors, and started having conversation with them, basically getting them to coach you, getting them to prepare you for a pathway in HR. Did you have that already in mind?
So I would say that I think the surprising thing is that while I was still doing my IT stuff back then for a couple of years before I transitioned over to HR, I realized that I didn't know that within the HR thing, there are so many different pillars that one could explore, right? Because I always think that as a HR person, you have to pao ka liao, or you have to become a generalist. You have to basically deal everything from end to end. But as the more conversation I strike through, the more network that I have, the more people that I mingle with throughout in all these external events that I go out there, and which I feel that, hey, I've learned something, I've gained something, and this is the reason why I feel that it is very important sometimes for us to really learn from our mistakes as well. And also sometimes you just do not know what you do not know. So I think just to answer to your question, I don't really have something directing me, but it's just that somewhat, I just got myself into the exploratory mode, and I found out more about this scene.
Okay, and that definitely led you to be a bit more interested in HR process as a whole, the whole infrastructure of HR. So moving forward for that, when was your first HR role? You mentioned recruitment. Yep,
exactly. So I was still in this very same company. So they kind of transitioned me kind of overnight. So they actually got me just one night to think about it. And I said that, and I said to them that, hey, just give me one night. And then the next day I said, yes, I'm ready. So of course, I transitioned probably about a month later, just to hand over all my IT stuff. I have to find my own replacement. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, that's the first job.
Yes. So that's the very first job, to find my own replacement, which I did. And then, so it's pretty funny that I'm still in the same company, but doing different role, seeing my team being led by other new people that I've hired in for them. So,
did you have moments of it being tough to let go of your previous team?
I think yes. I think it was pretty much quite a mixed feelings for me, because I thought that the camaraderie in terms of our own team bonding, it was very strong. We had plenty of fun. I guess every one of us view each other as friends more than colleagues at any point of time. And of course, sometimes I feel that, but my team backed me up in terms of like, hey, they see me as, hey, you already know the answer that, you could impact more lives than just our lives, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. So you were in recruitment for the same company when you made transition. Then after that, where did you go to?
Yeah, and then right after that, I actually joined this startup called My Taxi, or back then known as Grab
Right.
Taxi, and right now known as Grab.
Yep.
Right, which I believe that everyone has this app in their phone these days.
Did you buy? Did you get shares for it?
No.
Are you a half millionaire now?
No.
It's a shame.
How I
Yeah.
wish.
Yeah. So you joined My Taxi, now known as Grab.
Yeah.
Also as a HR component.
Yeah. So basically, that was more of a bigger portfolio where I cover in terms of not only in Malaysia, but I also have to cover across the Southeast Asia market as well. Just to name Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and also Philippines.
Yep. Okay. So you were doing, it's also part of a recruitment function, correct?
Yep.
Right.
And also employer branding. That is also
Right.
whereby I start to look at employer branding.
Right. It's a lot more of the employee value proposition.
Correct.
Because, Grab came out to startup, and then there's a whole big crux about them being recognizable, being a company that you want talent to go into.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Post Grab, when did you go to next?
Post Grab, I was with this startup as well. There's this digital advertising firm founded by four co-founders coming from Singapore. So we actually got an investors coming from India.
Yep.
So it's called Kivo Canvas. But unfortunately, after about a year that I was there, the company has to be liquidated. But again, like I said, those were pretty much sweet memories, because I would say that, we pretty much got bonded together even closer than before. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And after that, you joined for the book.
No, after that, I was with a very short while with Standard Chartered Bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the boring one. Sorry, Standard Chartered. It's all this while is pretty much through the recruitment and employer branding cycle.
Yeah.
And then finally you joined for the book.
But
also
when I was with the digital advertising agency, I
Right.
kind of cover in terms of the full-fledged of the HR function.
Right. Okay. Because it is a startup. Not to say startup, but it's more of a lean organization.
Yeah. So
So
whereby
that's
I
where
have to
you-
touch payroll, I have to touch training, I have to touch everything.
Okay. That's fair
Employee
enough.
engagement, everything.
Yeah. I think to be a really good HR person, to be a really good recruiter, actually, you need to know all these key core components, right? Because you're the one communicating internally with stakeholders, you're the one communicating externally with candidates. So I think all this stuff are quite critical for that. So tell me about your time in Photobook. You came here as the talent and culture manager. How is it going on so far?
Okay, I would say that probably about 2.5 years plus ago, when I first joined, I think my whole portfolio has definitely expanded. That time when I was coming on board, I think my whole portfolio was really about helping them to scale up, to ramp up in terms of some of the hirings. But little did I know that, hey, there's also this opportunity for us to do something about the employer brand. There's also something that we can do for the employee engagement. There's also something that we can do for the people function as well.
Yeah.
So because I see there's a lot of opportunities for us to do something for the people, and that basically didn't define. So my title didn't define who I am, but really about like seeing those opportunities and just grab them and just doing it for the people. And I guess that's the best return. I would say.
I think there's a caveat here as well. I think in this time and age where you see a title of an individual, it's rarely that set anymore, right? It's not apples to apples. Hey, you are this manager, and you do just this. I think a lot of people, especially in the HR spectrum, go into a different scope of project experiences they go into, where they're leading teams ad hoc, where they're doing certain rollouts, whatever it is. It's continuously different as it was, say, 5 to 10 years ago. If you are a recruitment manager, you're just recruitment manager. You're HRS, you're HRS. You're payroll, you're just payroll. But now you need to know so much more to do your job better. And you get involved with the commercial side of things, whether it's going to be finance, whether it's going to be the sales team, whatever it is. You just have to know a lot more. You just have to know a lot more about the people, the business, the structure, to be a fully well-rounded HR individual, regardless of which HR pillar you want to come in. And that's what leaders look for. That's what the decision makers look for. Someone which can run independently, not someone who just comes in and does A is A, B is B. Right. Cool. So one of the things I see that you're doing pretty well is your employer branding. So talk to me about that. What's your interpretation of employer branding? What have you done that you think are, really good things that people can sort of copy and exemplify from, and pay and pay you for copying it.
Yeah. So I think first thing first, we never do things for money. I would say that really is that belief, is that drive and that passion that that really drives it to where it is right now, right? So I guess just to answer to your question, I think in terms of employer branding, it's really about I would say it all comes down to two folds. I think one fold is how an internal employee perceives this particular brand.
Yeah.
And also on the flip side, on the external outside, it can be our friends, it can be our relatives, it can be our ex-colleagues as well, or it can be anyone, or even our ex-companies, how these people would view photo book as a brand when it comes to employability, right? So I would say that.
So how do you work? Let's look from outside in, or whichever way you want. How do you employer branding at a certain point is, to me, because photo book is a way where every single person that cuts across and sees this is a potential customer, right? Even people that you want to hire in the future. So looking at employer branding, how do you talk and how do you put that branding across to an external candidate? What do you guys do? What's your mindset towards it? What's your objective that you want to put out to let's say an external person, your external employer branding per se?
All right. So I would say that maybe I'll just put this more like a story sharing, right?
Sure.
So I think the first thing first that we were trying very hard, especially from the first phase when I first joined, that because we were still previously based in this place in Shah Alam, which is our factory right now, and definitely I could tell that the brand itself, I think from the moment when I were to reflect back when I was considering a role here, and I didn't know this was a Malaysian company to begin with, even for myself, right? Even though I've accepted the role, I'm already in the role, and I had to do some certain research, and I only found out, hey, this is actually a Malaysian company. I thought this is like maybe perhaps an Australian or a Canadian company, right? So I think this is the very first part that we see that we must definitely fix in terms of letting people out there know that this is actually a Malaysian company, right? And we also e-commerce, because I would say that these days there's a lot of these buzz and trends, people really going gaga over the e-commerce industry or the internet industry, right? So I think this is the very first thing that we would like to solve, right? And of course, with that said, we look into some of our key hiring plans, right? Whereby we start to bring in people like social media, we start to bring in people like SEO experts to really look and really help us to fix some of these things, so that when people search us online, people can really tell that we are actually a Malaysian company. So I think that's the very first thing that we look at. Those are some of the quick kills, right? So I think the second thing, how I would really put it, is really about, I think office location plays a part as well when it comes to employer branding, because I would say that obviously people wouldn't want to pick a long drive over to Shah Alam versus in Bangsa South, right? So I would say that ever since we moved our HQ office over to Bangsa South, it is way easier for me to even get candidates to accept my call, to come in for a face-to-face meetup or for coffee chat, and that definitely helps to elevate the brand as well, because again, like I said, the location plays a part, right? And people always looks at, hey, is there a nearby public transport? And if it's in Shah Alam, you have to drive. And over here, the nearest station is at Kerinci, which is only about 10 minutes walk. I tried it myself so that I can then convince my other potential candidate turn into employee in the future that, hey, if you would like to, take trains, it's only just 10 minutes, but just have to bring along an umbrella, right?
Yeah. So it's real-time information because you've done it before.
So I think this is point 2, right? So I think point 3 for us is also, I think this is really all, I think we have to be really thankful and so grateful, especially to the management for being able to willingly to invest on such a pretty nice office amenities and also environment space that we can enjoy here in Bangsa South. Again, like I said, sometimes with pretty much collaborative and open workspace, it really helps to define the kind of culture that we're trying to build. And of course, sometimes with picture postings, with people sharing it, with people starts kind of tagging us, right? That kind of helps to draw the kind of attraction when it
Yeah.
comes to online, right? So I think this would be also the third point that I would like to raise, especially in the very first phase on how it has helped us to shift our employer branding from being nobody to at least people know that we exist,
Yeah.
right? So I think that is definitely the first phase, right?
Right.
So I think in terms of phase two, how we really look at things is that, of course, the next key thing we look at is that really looking into, especially our own official Facebook page. We've got so many customers following our page already. I think to date it's probably about 300,000 to 400,000 likers, right? And for us, we see this as an opportunity for us to also not only just talk about our products, talk about offerings, talk about our services, talk about promos or deals or wishes and all, but also to start talk about about a little bit more about our vacancies and stuff, like, to really let people know that, hey, we are hiring, we are growing,
Yeah.
and we are really going to take this company to the next level. So I think these are some of the things that we have also done it, right? So I think also the next key target, of course, for us internally, while we use LinkedIn, I think to those of you who don't know, LinkedIn is actually a pretty much very famous professional.
It's a professional Facebook without all the random people who ask you for
all the
invites.
random people. Yeah, right. So Nic has got it all covered, right? So and we look at it and say, hey, let's look at our Affordable Worldwide LinkedIn page, right?
Mhm.
What are those contents inside? What have we posted before? So I think these are some of the questions that we ask ourselves, and when we look at it, we are looking at, hey, in terms of the number of followers is way too low for us not to be doing anything. So from there on, we actually start planning out in terms of like calendars.
Yeah.
What are some of the content that we really want to share, and we actually do a lot of testing as well.
Yeah.
Of course, these are some of the things that in the external eyes people wouldn't know, but of course we test our postings to really see what sort of postings people are usually more engaged with, and people are usually drawn into as well. So I think these are some of the things that I can share, right?
Cool.
To the
So to
readers,
summarize, I mean,
to others out there.
because you mentioned it's it was originally in Shah Alam, so I think location was one of the things you want to push out as well. Then obviously the brand name, it being a local organization, we talk about grassroots organization, and it's sort of a Malaysia mentality, and then obviously in regards of the accessibility of the location as well.
Correct.
So I think putting that as phase one makes a lot more sense, because you really just want to put yourself at a level playing field with everyone else. Then you start working on the content and things like LinkedIn and all that.
Mm-hmm.
How has it improved over time? Do you for me, I understand, because the accessibility to a person to come in for an interview, for a conversation, the appeal of it being an organization. So you really building two things. One is the image. Two is the accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go into LinkedIn or Facebook, that you try to build the realness of the organization. It's not just photo book, we do this, we do that, we're based here. It's like we do this, we do that, but we have a culture. We put out content that tells you how we work. Basically putting your company's missions and objectives on content itself.
Mm-hmm.
So on LinkedIn, how would you be doing that?
All right, so I would say that especially on LinkedIn itself, right? I think I've also covered some of these things in one of my previous talks this year,
Mhm.
right? I would say that there are a lot of different categories that we look at, right? So I think for us, it is always about sharing authentic content that is of your company's culture, right? So perhaps let me just try to put this in a simple example for everyone, right, to really digest. Is that, so basically there are always opportunities out there that you can be doing the same for your company, and LinkedIn is just like a medium. It's just
a
like
platform,
a tool.
right?
It's like a
There's
platform
different
for
platforms around as well.
for you to just showcase what were some of the things that you have done with your staff together, right? Say for instance, it can be your annual dinner, it can be your team building, it can be your team bonding activities, it can be some of the engagement things that you are driving as well, or it can be as simple as leadership talks, or it can be as simple as even people standing together having stand-up meetings, right? And then it is always about crafting the content that would really tell a little bit more about the culture inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to really to create that, I guess the content and storyline to influence anyone or really relate to someone that reads it or experiences it. So that to me brings it also back to internal employer branding, another critical component you're mentioning about. So for me, you could be doing all this nice, awesome stuff for external people, but then part of it is also having your internal employees, your current employees, your colleagues believing in the same fact.
Yeah.
So how do you cut across in doing that? What have you done to create that culture? So when someone joins for the book, they go like, hey, you know what? They are telling the truth. They are telling me that what I've seen is what it is. Too often we've seen organizations do really fancy stuff for external parties, but once you go in, it's like, oh man, this is so not the same as what I saw before. But you're saying that this is similar to what you want put out externally to how you build it internally. So how would you build an internal org culture or internal employer branding?
So I would say that for any organizations out there to really look at culture rebuilding or culture transformation, I think these days there are a lot of ideas and also innovative stuff that are also going out there, right? So I think let me just share what has really worked for us in terms of the step-by-step journey, right? So I think for us as an organization, first we have to define what really matters to us, right? So again, like I said, the purpose of why we exist, the vision, the mission, and also the key strategies, right? For me, at the end of the day, really it's all about business sustainability should come first, right? Then only then we really look into, hey, what can we then do better from where we are right now. So I think the first thing that we did was really about running surveys to really understand the health check of basically how everyone is feeling, from all sorts of angles, from leadership standpoint, from processor standpoints, from systems standpoints and whatnot, right? So again, from there on, we are kind of like able to kind of determine where we are right now, and then of course then we look into dissecting a little bit more by having in-depth conversations with individuals, and so we've introduced focus group discussions, right? And that was pretty much quite interesting because we actually group random people together across different functions and different departments.
At different levels as well.
Yes, and also at different levels as well. And definitely you can see some are more vocal, some are more quiet. So, but we basically try to be consistent across all different sessions. And for me, those informations were pretty much quite vital. And we have also looked at some of the exit interviews, questionnaires that we've also compiled along as well. So from there on, we are able to really look at, say, hey, what are our 9 top buckets on the areas that we need to really look at in order for us to drive further and to really strengthen our culture, right? So I think for us, first thing first is that, we as a company, I would say that, we have pretty much grown in terms of sizes, in terms of more locations right now, and there's so much more new business verticals, and we know for a fact that we could not just live with our previous vision, mission, and also our core values. So let's just say, for instance, last time we had 10 core values, and one of the pain point that I had when I onboard those people, right, is that most of the time people only remember the first and remember the last one, right? And nobody really remembers the second until the 9. So that means to say that having 10 is just way too many. So I think this is also one of the biggest lesson learned. And for us as an organization, for us coming from the people perspective, is that, hey, when the company starts to look into a refresh new company vision and mission, so what we did as an organization was to really look at, see, hey, can we get from bottom up, right? So I think bottom up is actually one of the key strategy that we look at in terms of really hearing them out, in terms of like, if you get to play a part to redefine the company's core values, what would it be? Right?
So did you, in terms of, you asked them in terms of, you did a pulse survey of sort, right?
Yeah.
Or what the critical buckets which they were one unhappy about, put it both extremes, happy about and being happy about. So if you could share, what are some elements that the employees felt that could need a bit more improvement? So you mentioned that too many core values would be one.
Yeah.
Any other examples of what you think would be top 3?
I would say that, because for us, we have been in business for, let's say, for instance, 14 years right now.
Yep.
But I would say that we really, really start to scale up probably about 6-7 years ago, right?
Mhm.
So again, like I said, there were a lot of things that were still manual, and we needed to kind of automate some of our processes as well. And so we did so, right? So I think
Right.
these are some of the things that really help us to channel our focus on what really matters.
Yeah.
And those are and those were quick wins.
Okay, so for example, and I think a lot of companies, a lot of people, if you listen to this as well, would be one of the things about why can't they just have a system for this? I can do it. I
Yeah.
can put it in. It's easier. Then I can spend more time doing my actual job, right? So I'm guessing this will be one of the key, I'll say, key feedback for most companies. And not to put for the book as an example, but most companies in that 5 to 10 year phase, where you had a lean team, but then you grow bigger, and then you realize that, hey, I can't just have one person doing manual work all the time. I need something that's automated, something that's self-serving and sustainable, so everyone can actually do the job which I hired to do. Okay, so that's I agree. That's definitely a quick win in regards to getting a system. And then you're talking about basically culling down the 10 mission, 10 objectives for the organization as well. Then that in a way also talks about changing a culture, right? It's a change management aspect to it. Now, then my next question is, how did you keep your employees engaged throughout this whole process? Because we know that it's tough to keep employees engaged as you're changing the whole bit of a directional ship of sorts, changing the direction of a ship. But how then did you keep the employees consistently engaged as you're doing that?
Yeah. So I guess just to really continue on my story just now about the core values, right? So when we sent out those surveys to really let them, pick the top 5 words that highly resonates with them, right? Or the kind of like positive adjectives and stuff like that. So we managed to really look at on a company global level scale, and it is pretty interesting that we actually see a lot of similarities. And at the end of the day, we were all pretty much quite happy with the 5 that we've got. And so I think throughout the whole process, it's always about really keep communicating to them. And when we officially launched this, right, which is during our team building, 2 days, 1 night, so that it really goes into everyone's mind that, how are we taking this very seriously? Is that we are also going to kind of like combine this inside our performance management module.
Right.
So I think this is the very interesting part, because I would say that not only that we have also adopted a shift in terms of our performance management. We are now no longer using KPI or KRA model,
right.
but we're now using an OKR methodology where it's more open, it's more like it's more direct, and it's more transparent as well. And it really helps to really look into, like, let's say, not only just at your competency skills, but we also look into like, hey, how well are you behaving when it comes to these 5 core values, right? Because we actually have a systems that anyone can raise perhaps a job well done based on one of our 5 core values. Those will be taken as a recognition, and at the end of the day, when it comes to our performance appraisal, so those are the things that we look at as well, right? Besides, we really look into also having reviews coming from not only yourself or a manager, but also have peer reviews, have stakeholder reviews, and that really strengthens the different components, and that really helps to drive the internal culture that we're trying to build, whereby we want to really, really be looking into performance, but also at the same time collaborative. Yeah.
Okay. So it's great. I mean, putting your 5 core values into performance management, I think it's one key critical aspect to really walking the walk, right? Not just saying it and then not putting element to it, and leaving performance review to just your people manager, right? So it's great to have peer-to-peer reviews, upper, lower, senior management, subordinates, people that you work with as well. So you mentioned that anyone can call out a good job done. So basically like a thank you award kind of stuff.
Or maybe perhaps like a kudos, right?
All right. Okay. Cool. Now, I want to jump on something next that we were talking about. So what's your ensemble of head count? Like, how many people are, do you put them in demographics like millennials, older people, Gen Y, Gen X's, that kind of stuff?
You mean company-wide?
Yeah.
I would say that on average, our average age is around 29 years old.
Okay.
I would consider that as still pretty much young.
So how do you start appealing to those individuals? How do you get them? How do you keep them consistently engaged? Because you were giving a talk last time about really engaging millennials, and that sort of interested me because right now we put the mindset of millennials versus people who are a bit more mature in the organization. There are different objectives altogether, right? They're different thoughts, school of thoughts. Whereas the millennials like, okay, look, I want to put my value into this organization, and I have to take care of myself. I mean, I'm generalizing. Millennials, please don't flame me. Whereas the older generation will go like, I'll just do my best, and then the company will recognize me and take care of me, right? I'll do first, then ask later. Whereas the millennials will be like, why? What do you want me to do this? Why do you want to do that? So how do you work across that, given your experience?
So I guess there are a couple of things that what really tick millennials, right? So I think first thing first is really about, I would say that every millennials from really through all my touch points, right? I think they really need to know the sense of purpose. That means to say that they need to know the goals. They need to know what are you expecting of them, but do not dictate. That means to say that do not set goals that I want to see this on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, but really about setting them big goals and give them that kind of freedom for them to go get them, right? So I think that's definitely the one angle that I see that has always been successful, right? So I think another area that I look at is really about giving them feedback. I think most of the millennials, they want it fast. They are perhaps a little bit more like impatient, I would say, but perhaps impatience is a bit too strong on them. But basically, they cannot wait to see, hey, tell me, right? So I think it's really about having constant communication, constant conversations with them to really let them know that, hey, I guess you're doing well. Hey, I guess this part, I think this is the area that you can look at when it comes to improving yourself, right? So I think they will definitely appreciate a pretty much open conversation rather than you do not let them know until the end of the year and then you just surprise them with like, hey, I'm giving you a bad rating because you did not do this and that. So I think they do not appreciate those things. Right. I think these are some of the things that I realized as well. I think these are some of the commonalities. But I think thirdly is really about, it's really about having fun at work with them. So by me saying so, right, is that I would say that all millennials would love to be well respected. So do not view them as like of a different ranks, but really view them as hey, you're like my peer, right? Rather than you're my team, right? So I think that changes the level of conversations, and that they would feel more comfortable to kind of open up to you, and when they feel that they could trust you. Right, so eventually they'll be able to, go and catch all your goals together with you.
Yep. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And also for me, I guess the thought process of giving them that purpose, giving them the overall sphere, giving them the room to work towards it, I think that's quite beneficial as well. Now, if you mentioned that we always consistently have to give them feedback as well, does that then, in a way, in your point of view, sort of take them away of the skill set of being a bit more self-aware? But because, okay, let's say flashback before millennials, if we screw up, there's no boss who can tell us, hey, this is what you did, whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, you screwed up, think about it. Then we'll go back and think about it. Oh, okay, this is how it is, this is what happened. So now when a millennial, not say screw up, didn't do as exactly what we want them to do, and we give them feedback, and we give them, a thought process to go through, does that in a way take away their ability to be a bit more self-aware? What do you think?
Okay, so I would say that there are two types of conversation that we can definitely explore. I think the first one would be definitely more on the coaching, right? Whereby we ask them question back, like, what do you think? How well do you think you have done for the past 6 months? So I think these are some of the coaching conversations that a lot of people can practice, right? But also there's also another angle whereby you can't always be looking at coaching conversations if there is a point whereby it reaches to a point whereby perhaps they are making the same mistakes again, or perhaps that they do not know what they do not know. I think this is the part whereby you really need to go in with your story sharing, or perhaps some of the best practices, or maybe perhaps case studies, or maybe perhaps plug from these particular examples that, hey, you have done well in this area, right? So perhaps you need to start look at this area, right? For you to keep driving. So I think definitely look into different types of conversation styles, because there is no one size fits all. And I would say that they will pretty much quite enjoy if you would always really care for their feelings as well. Like say for instance, right? I would say that millennials they tend to enjoy traveling, right? So if they really want to go off on a leave to travel, right, support them, right? But of course, sometimes I understand, when it comes to peak period or
Yeah.
and whatnot, right? But it's always being about supportive in terms of what they really like
Yeah.
to do outside of office hours.
Okay. Then, so we know how to talk to millennials now. Now, most of the people managers with millennials would be the Gen X's, Gen Y's. How do we then educate them to have that conversation? Because I see there's a missing link, right? I know great people managers who can have conversations with everyone, millennials all the way to baby boomers or whatever it is. I personally don't believe in that segmentation. Basically, you're a good communicator. You communicate to everyone. But if you're putting it into categorization, then how do we educate these people to talk to the new workforce? What's your opinion on that?
I think for me, I'm a self believer of reverse coaching. That I always feel that even these days, even though I might still be considered as the early millennials, right? But I would say that even I can see there's this shift in terms of how the way they look at things, how the way they behave, how the way they see life as a whole, right? I will always say that hey, I think there are always a lot of things out there that they will know much more better than you. Let's say, for instance, perhaps it could be newest apps out there, newest techs out there, or perhaps let's say, for instance, give them a particular project that you can really see that when you talk about that project, right, you will see fire in their eyes, or when you ask for idea generation during brainstorming session, if you have any. I think that when they speak with that passion, give them that kind of accountability and that kind of ownership to run things.
Yeah.
And actually at the same time, right, you will really see that you can learn from them, from their new ideas. Because I would say that be it on it can be as simple as, let's say for instance, running on let's say for instance we would like to do Christmas activities, right?
Yeah.
Say for instance the usual common ones, I think across generations would be gift exchange, right? But the younger millennials will really think about like, hey, why don't we spice things up to perhaps have a dice game, or perhaps have an ugly Christmas, or perhaps have something else, right? So I would say that it all comes down to their creativity, and then you need to support them. So that is actually how you're actually able to let them feel that you are listening to them, and it's not always that you impose to them, it's my way or the highway. So I think that is a very subtle way of reverse coaching. I would say that by supporting their ideas and make it come true.
Right. So there's also basically, I think for me that the difficult part is to step back and relinquish control, right? Give them the authority, the ownership to run these things. And if they do well or they don't, whatever it is, it's full support. Then you talk about post-mortem conversations later. Then you have that capability or the opportunity to talk about what could have gone better, pretty much doing a quick review of things coming on board. Then basically, in short, you are investing in them first, and then you're taking back that interest rate. If you look at it from a bank point of view. Cool, interesting. So people managers out there, you now have the code to crack millennials, and millennials, you now have a bit of understanding of how to not say manipulate, but how to influence your people leaders, your managers at an older, more mature authority. Cool. So that's done. I want to talk about also one passion projects in hand, and I think it's been creating a huge bunch of waves across the HR community. So DisruptHR KL. Can you give me a bit of a rundown of what that's about? And for everyone listening, if you don't know Joachim, then I think you guys are living under the HR rock. But if you do know Joachim, then pretty much you could, most of the time you will know him from what he's been doing for DisruptHR KL, which is on his third year now.
Yeah,
third year now. So give us a bit of rundown on what that's about, and how you came across to lead that.
Truly humbled to what you've mentioned just now, right? So I think basically DisruptHR is definitely not started by me. It's started by someone with the name of Jennifer in the States. And basically the whole idea is really about getting people together, like-minded individuals. It can be HR professionals, it can be technologists, it can be the C-suites people, to really come together in one evening, perhaps after office hours, and just mingle, network, and also share knowledge in a pretty much short and energized form. Right. I would say that we have managed to brought in the DisruptHR KL license in early January 2018.
Yep.
So we have already ran 4 events in the past, and I would say the up and coming one is coming around March, April, which is pretty soon.
You guys better get your tickets because they sell out so fast. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, man. We actually have the same problem. I think it's a good problem to have. I think each time whenever we think about, like, let's say, hey, I think let's settle with this crowd, we will always hit into venue space issues, and that we have got no choice but to really stop people from coming, just because that we want to ensure the experience for everyone, it is still pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So tell me, what's the purpose of this in terms of what the format is? And I know that I know it. I've been to one. Apologies for missing the first 2.
No problem.
But tell us about how you guys are making it energetic. How are you making it disruptive? Give us a bit of a rundown of the agenda for the day.
So I guess maybe let me just roll back as to the reason why I want to be part of this, and also the reason why I feel that it is important for us to have an avenue like this, right? So I think very first thing first, what really piqued my interest, like to really be part of the founding team, right, so to speak, is to really about like really look at, let's say, I have been attending, quite a series of number of HR conferences and events and forums out there, and for me, I would say that there are still a lot of organizations out there that are still practicing pretty much traditional HR admin function, which for me, of course, recently I'm pretty much quite happy to really see that there's a shift. Like, there's more and more new awareness going into like digital disruption, the VUCA, the IR 4.0 is here, and all kinds of things, right? And for me, I just have to know that HR industry needs to be disrupted, especially in Malaysia. I think we first started with that mindset. And that really drives us. That really gives us that kind of passion to do this outside of our office hour, right? So I would say that we have all committed to do this, after our office hours, which means that I still have my full-time job with Photobook, let's say. But also at the same time, I try that I won't touch any of these matters during office hours, and only I'll do that after that, right? So I would say that there are altogether 4 of us who just band together, and when we want to run these things, right, I think there's a lot of perspective that we can look at, because there are already so many recorded videos out there that you can look at the DisruptHR official Vimeo channel, coming from all across cities across different countries, and that so for us we have been asking ourselves, like, what can we do to really ensure that the content is as of quality, and people can really take back with some key learnings, key bite-sized learning, or maybe I would say nugget-sized learning, right? So one of the things we look at is really about the topic, right, to ensure that there is no overlapping of topics. So we are the curators of the topic. So I think that's the first thing first we look at when it comes to topics, right? I think the second part that we look at is really about the diversity. Diversity is something that we want to ensure that they are equal in terms of gender. They are also equal in terms of races, and also we want people coming from non-Malaysians as well, right? So for us, our end goal is really about to spread this movement outside across to more Southeast Asian countries, and also that we have also helped to impact on the India side, and that I know someone is holding the license in Singapore. I'm not sure whether it's still active, but I would say that if there are any listeners out there, if you are HR, if you're passionate HR coming from Thailand or Philippines or Indonesia, speak to me, and I would love to see it happening right there across different countries, so that we can then really look at, let's say, hey, we can share all this knowledge between different countries on how HR is being practiced at a different level, at a different scale, and perhaps we can definitely take a thing or two back, right? So I think this is also the second thing that we look at, right? And also I think in terms of the format itself, I think it's quite interesting, and it is also, I would say that it will keep every one of us engaged, especially inside the room. Why? Because every speakers that we have invited, I mean, of course, apart from they are pretty much experienced and they are the subject matter experts of the particular topic that they will really want to take on, is that, everyone is only being given 5 minutes maximum,
Yep.
20 slides, and every slide is automatically rotated on 15 seconds basis without the mouse clicker,
Yep.
which means that you have to pace yourself. And even the best speakers, when they come to rehearsal, sometimes they were too fast or sometimes they were too slow, and definitely we laugh about it, but no one knows about it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are some of the things that we look at when it comes to like after office hours. I think usually people will be a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted. So people just really want it to be short and 5 minutes. And one of the things that we were quite happy about is that people's attention span are generally quite short, and this format can keep people energized again and again and recharge and recharge.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I mean, I haven't been to one of it, and looking back at the previous videos that you have on the website, I feel that it's, as you mentioned, nugget-sized learnings. And even if you don't really focus on what's happening on each of these slides that presenters are putting through, there is that overall message that you can actually really take back. And I also like it because it always starts and ends on time, because you're given 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you've got 5 minutes, 10 speakers. Okay, it's 1 hour across plus the networking part of it, etc. Then 2.5 hours, and we're good. And I think that's the short, concise, really agenda focused type of event that the HR community sorely needs. So for me personally, gone are the days where you spend the whole day in a convention center with booths and one-on-one conversations. Nope, you don't do that anymore. You go in, you learn, you listen to this DisruptHR KL, you meet up with people. If you guys want to take the conversation further out for drinks or coffee, wherever, the next couple of days, you're great. So basically, it's a short spurt of energy, and it being after work, I think is very much needed, right? You don't want to be the boring kind of exchange name card and then sit down and listen to one guy talk for an hour. You just kind of fall asleep for that. Cool. Now, okay, so I've asked everything I want to ask. Is there anything that you want to talk about that's not in the agenda?
I guess I would say nothing much that's in my mind right
So
now.
what's next for you in HR sphere? So you're making waves with DisruptHR KL. You're getting good positive impact in terms of photo book. You've moved from recruitment to talent and culture manager, which everyone thinks is the same thing, but it's not. It's very intrinsic. Now, what's next for you? What's your goal? What's your plan next for 2020? Say.
I think for 2020 for me is really about perhaps exploring a little bit more when it comes to the learning and development function.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking at moving into more of a coaching kind of angle as well, and I'm also hoping to get myself certified on TTT, train the trainer. For those of you who do not know what TTT is all about, I would say that would be my main aim, and also really helping photo book to really scale up across to new markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, and hopefully Taiwan.
Right. How can a talent and culture manager help for the book scale up to regional markets?
I would say that because right now we are in the e-commerce space, we already have the active URL up and running, and we have already have those even currency conversion is all ready made already. So I think it's really about driving more customer acquisitions. It's really all about really looking at the right person to really help us to scale up when it comes to the marketing function, the business development function. I think that's really pretty much important.
Yeah.
And for us, I think we look partnerships as one of our very key drive when it comes to our strategy, right? So I think these are some of the things that we look at.
And I think for me personally, also looks at, because it is a consumer-based kind of business, right? And consumers tend to be a bit more conscientious now in terms of what they buy and who they buy it from. And for me, building a good brand image of the organization which they buy from, I think that's quite critical. A lot of companies tend to overlook that, but then there's a lot of purchasing power. There's a lot of buyer authority right now when they look at companies. Hey, I want to buy something that's eco-friendly, something that has a company that delivers diversity, a company that delivers equal opportunity, employment rights, all that kind of stuff. And you might not think that it's a huge issue, but I feel that for me as a HR person, it's going to revolve around that area. Right now, you're talking about things like, sustainable water, no one's going to use one-time plastic bottles anymore. So as that messaging cuts across to the consumers, it also cuts across to how we position an organization in the eyes of a consumer. You're not going to buy sweaters from a sweatshop in China, right?
Yeah.
You want to buy something that's made locally and in safe environments. So I think that's.
I have something to add here,
Yeah.
right? So I would say that I think one of the things that that we look at very seriously, which we have already kind of like planned out a 10 years plan, right? Is really about, I think we as an organization, we are taking the Go Green campaign very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that recently we have actually formed our internal naming called Project Alt Natives. Basically, it's like alternatives, right?
Right.
And that has and we have divided ourselves into the business, the office, and also the production side, right? So I think, especially on the office, I'm actually part of the office part, right? And I'm being tasked to really look at and source for the the 3 colored recycle bins for the offices, not only for our KL office but also across all our other offices as well. And we also really look into like every little things when it comes to even as simple as changing all light bulbs to LED, really having more key messages on saving the water and really looking at, let's say, even to the extent of, let's say, our economy rice provider. We want to ensure that are you using biodegradable plastics, and also when it comes to like simple things like, let's say, when you're buying maybe a tapa or drink outside there, right? Please do not use plastic straws, right? So I think these are some of the things that we are driving a lot, and more new initiatives coming up, and we internally we're very excited because I would say that we are driving so many things right now to really ensure that we are being part of this, right? Like because we as an organization, we know that our industry is printing, right? And we know for a fact that if we don't start even from an internal mindset, I think we are doomed, right? So hence the reason why we are taking this very, very seriously. So I think these are also going to be one of our long-term plan, right? So we are looking at the 10 years plan.
I think that's really critical for organizations such as this to be self-aware of the resources that they use and making the real effort to cut down on it, or be a bit more lean management towards it as well. So that's really, really commendable. Really, really happy that you mentioned that. Cool. I think we're down to almost to the hour already. So Joachim, tell us a bit about before we sign off. Give us a rundown on things that we can look at for the book, whether it's going to be Facebook, LinkedIn. If you want to put your email out there, by all means as well.
Oh, sure. I mean, for those of you when it comes to professional network, you can hit me up in LinkedIn with JOACHIM space OOI. I think you will get only one return result.
I'm gonna link it.
And I'm always quite an I'm also quite an outgoing guy, so that means that if you're a badminton player, please hit me up as well. And also, I'm a big foodie, which means if you got nice, great food recommendations, please do let me know.
Well, you have to be here from Penang, man. You better be a foodie.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So they are on LinkedIn for the book as well. You can go onto their LinkedIn page. Joachim is definitely going to be there. I'll post this up on LinkedIn on it as well.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it, Joachim, for the time.
Thank you so much for your time, Nick.
No worries. Thank you very much again, and we'll talk back later.
All right. Lovely.
If you'd like to find out more about the show and listen to other episodes, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, or whichever platform you use. Do leave us a comment, feedback, or rating. That will help us out a lot. Our Instagram handle is @withrandomAwesomePeople. If you could tell a friend about the show or share it on social media, every little bit helps. Thank you again for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.